And thank you all so much for joining me for our Packed Lunch Hacks class. Whether you're joining us live or you're catching this on the video, we're really excited to have you join us to explore some things that we do very regularly every day from maybe a bit of a different perspective to increase a little bit of ease, look at nutrition from a different perspective, and maybe also bring in some creativity and inspiration. So we are going to roll right into it with a little bit of a sense of gratitude and delight. And when we're talking about meals, it's always nice to start with some sort of sense of gratitude or blessing. When we're talking about packed lunches, and for this class, whether we're talking about a packed lunch for you, for a spouse, for a child, this information is also going to roll beautifully into packing for a road trip, packing for a picnic, anytime you really want to eat good food and you're kind of outside of your own kitchen. And I'd like to just kind of start there with just a thought of gratitude. We're going to explore a lot in this chat around how we eat is around how we eat and how that very much contributes to nutrition, sometimes even more so than just what it is we're eating. And so when we take an attitude of appreciation for our food, or just an uplifting attitude, it certainly helps to relax the body, which relax the digestive tract, which aids in our ability to digest whatever it is we're eating. So I'll invite you to just take a couple deep breaths, and we'll start with this blessing. Our blessings on the blossoms and blessing on the roots, blessings on the leaves and stems, and blessing on the fruit. And I also wanted to share with you to begin just a short little story for me that really, really resonates around the power of nourishment in a packed lunch beyond just the food. And I remember when I'm pretty sure I was in grade 5, and I had my very best friend. And I remember watching her open her lunch one day, and in it was a note written on a napkin from her mom. And I don't remember what it said, but that left such an impression for me on being nurtured, and how just a little bit of effort, a little bit of attention can kind of create a whole feeling of gratitude and delight and blessings in our life. So whoever you're packing lunches for, and I'm not necessarily suggesting that this has to happen all the time. I promise my goal here is actually to try and make your life easier, not to add more effort. But sometimes just a little something unexpected, and whether it's just a little treat or a sweet little note, and you can see a few here that I've pulled off the internet, which I thought were funny. Or if you're packing for yourself, even the containers that you pack it in that are pleasing for you, that it's not just some dumpy, beat up old plastic containers from the cupboard, that maybe you pack for yourself a real linen napkin. I think these little touches take the experience of a packed lunch, which may often just get eaten at a desk, and uplift it. And I really believe that moves us into these higher levels of being nourished on all levels of our being. So that's where we're going to start today as far as gratitude. The other thing that we're really going to be weaving into this chat, and we've only got an hour, so I'm going to try and do my best to share some tips that are meaningful for you, but also perhaps inspire your additional study and exploration on nourishment, is by sharing a little bit of our practice and study of Ayurveda. And if Ayurveda is new to you, that's great. And if it's something that you've studied for years and years and years, that's great as well. I'm sharing just a brief definition here and letting you know that Ayurveda is really it's a sister science that comes out of India related to yoga. And where we could say yoga is kind of the purification and nourishment of the mind, we could say Ayurveda is the purification and the nourishment of the body, or what we do in our everyday life around food and diet and lifestyle choices. And often, especially in the beginning of the study of Ayurveda, it is just defined as the wisdom of nature. But through my maybe 15 years of very conscious study and kind of weaving it into my life, my parenting, my marriage, and my practice as a wellness counselor, I'm going to share an expansion of this definition. And this is the appropriate use of nature's wisdom based on the situation. And so I'll give you an example. In kind of the basic study of Ayurveda, or what we could call maybe Ayurveda 101, we wake during the day and we sleep at night, because that aligns us with nature's rhythms. In the rhythms of nature, everything is alive, and there is light and heat and warmth and stimulation during the day. And at night, things contract, they internalize through the cold and the darkness. So that is the general teaching. But in our society and in everybody's different situation, we have to do the very best we can. If you have a newborn baby, I was a child who grew up with two parents who were nurses, and they worked night shifts all the time. This was a part of my living. And so although Ayurvedically, we could say the rule is you sleep at night, you wake during the day, that was not their experience. And sometimes we have to make the very best choices we can based on the situation, not the very best choices that are some guideline in a book. And that's what we're going to really kind of explore. So what I hope to share are some different perspectives based on taking Ayurvedic principles and kind of weaving them with a little bit of common sense and the understanding that if you're packing lunches, you're out of the home for some part of the day. And but I think that we can weave together the practicalities of a busy working life and still make that lunch quick, easy, yummy, nutritious, and creative, not boring. So this is going to be what we're going to try and do. And when you registered for this talk, if you registered in advance, we asked you to share with us what you were hoping to learn. And when I took all of that information and kind of summarized it, these were the 4 pieces that people were really looking for. We were looking for ways to make packed lunches in a quick and easy way, or we were looking to find ways to make sure that by the time we got to that food, it was still good. It tasted good. We were maybe enthusiastic to eat it. Making sure that it is nutritious was also important. And making sure that it didn't get boring or repetitive or the same old thing. So very ambitiously, I'm going to try and hit all 4 of these points in the next 49 minutes. So let's continue. I just want to say something for those of you who are joining us live. If this is the first time you've been on a live chat, or if this is something new for you, and if for any other reason you get cut off, I'm recording this, and I promise that I will send a copy of the recording to everyone, so nobody is going to miss anything. So if you have some technical difficulty, don't worry about it, and sometime soon I will be in touch with a copy of the recording. Okay. So the first thing we're really going to talk about tonight in sharing this kind of information is the thermos. And I understand that this probably isn't any kind of major revelation, and you may have one tucked away in a cupboard or not, and you may be using it for packed lunches or not. But I'm going to share with you some specific reasons about why I think the thermos is a revolutionary lunch consideration. And this hits two of these main points to me that really speak to moving just from a lunch to nurturing ourselves or those people who we're caring for. And that is when we're using a thermos to heat something and then eat it at lunch. There's two things that we're going to find out. There's two kind of experiences that we have. And one is that generally hot food is easier to digest. Hot food has been cooked. It's warm. For it to work in a thermos, it usually has some sort of moisture involved. And fundamentally, just based on the general kind of principles, this meal will be digested easier than something raw. The other thing is that a warm meal is generally more comforting. Now, I'm saying generally, and I understand that we're talking about lots of different times of year, lots of different seasons, lots of different cultures, depending on when you're watching this. But this is something I have really experimented with. And even when the weather is hot, I will still feel better digestively. I will still feel more nurtured and comforted when I'm eating something warm, when I have something warm in my belly to go with my meal. So this is something that I really just invite you to explore. And the way we would explore that is to kind of ask this next question, which really is, what are we going to put in the thermos? And this is where we're going to shift from nutritious and yummy to quick and easy. And obviously, the first easiest answer to that is generally to put in leftovers. Now, I know we're not going to put chicken fingers and French fries and a Caesar salad in a thermos. So it requires a little bit of finessing around what you're going to put in that thermos. But ultimately, anything that is a soup, a stew, or some kind of soupy, stewy food is going to have a really great ability to stay warm or hot for lunch and still be really tasty. It's still going to be good. So the first and easiest thing is to take what you're making for dinner and make a little bit extra and put it in the thermos. I'm sure many of you are doing this in lots of different ways, and this isn't necessarily rocket science, but the idea of the lunch being warm might be something new for you to play around with. The next thing that we can kind of talk about in putting in the thermos is to kind of make it easy, because one of the questions I had was, I'm pretty good at putting leftovers in my lunch, but what happens on the days when I'm really busy and I didn't even get a chance to make dinner, and so there are no leftovers? And so these are a couple of the considerations that come from that situation. And one is just, I'm going to call it Soup Sunday, which just means at some point on the weekend, make a really big pot of some sort of soup or stew that your family love, and package it up in individual containers in the freezer. And then it's very easy in the morning to just warm it up and put it in a thermos. This becomes even easier. And if we build on that one more step, I would say just buy something. There are lots of places now, whether you go to your specialty grocery store, you go to your market, or whoever in your community is trying to build a beautiful business on making good quality food, just buy some fresh thermosware from them. Package it in individual containers, put it in your freezer or in your fridge, depending on how many days it is, and reheat it and in the morning and put it in your thermos. So what this does is it makes it very simple. And although we're really kind of talking about these practices around packed lunches, I also think these just kind of work regularly in our everyday lives. And I'll even share for you, this week has been a very, very busy week for us, and we still use these kinds of principles. We knew it was going to be particularly busy. So we went out, we have a nice local specialty grocery store. They make homemade soups with no preservatives. We bought 2 kind of big containers and we left them in the fridge. And so when it comes time to put a lunch together, it reduces all the stress and strain for us, because we know we have something nutritious that we can warm in a quick and easy way and just eat for lunch. And then it's very easy to supplement that kind of core of the lunch with whatever works for your family or who you're cooking for, with fruit, with bread or crackers or cheese or salad. All of that kind of stuff around the edges is very easy to kind of put in place bit by bit, and also gives you some creativity to play around. But I'm very happy with a nice big hot bowl of soup and cheese and butter and bread. And I feel like that's a very nutritious and kind of well-round meal. So the kind of the secret, or the thing that's going to change here, or that you're going to find, is I'm not necessarily giving you specific recipes, although I promise I'll give you a few, and we'll get to that at the end. But what I'm suggesting here is principles. Take what you love, take what your family loves, what you know they're going to eat, and just have it available. And one of the Ayurvedic principles is around that we really shouldn't eat frozen food, that we really shouldn't eat leftovers, that we shouldn't eat store-bought food. And this is the place where we get back to that definition of Ayurveda that I gave you from the beginning. There is the ideal situation, and then there is our lives. And I still think it's better, more nutritious, more healthy for you to make a soup or buy a soup from a place that you trust and reheat it and put it in your thermos than it is, and know all morning that there is a comforting and delightful lunch waiting for you, rather than at lunchtime trying to figure out what we're going to do. Okay, now where am I going to go? How much money am I going to spend? And all of those things that because we feel like we should have made something fresh day after day after day. If that's not a reality, then we just have to do the very best we can with the situation. And then that's where we get these 3 choices of leftovers, making something on the weekend and packaging it, or just getting the best thing that you can buy and putting that together. And it's still, no matter what, all of these options are still going to save you a lot more money than going out, generally, unless you want to. Okay, so we're definitely going to have a little bit of time for questions, but this is the first place, and this is really the core of kind of what we're talking about. Simple, hot, comforting meal that's quick and easy to make happen. The next thing that I really want to talk about is, and I just started to allude to it a little bit, but is this idea of how stress and strain impacts nutrition. We are very, very concerned, which is a certain kind of stress and anxiety nowadays, about what we're eating. Is it this? Is it that? Does it have enough vitamins? But anytime we are worrying, it completely contracts the body. It contracts the digestive system, and it just creates a lot of tension, so that even if we're eating the very best quality food, we are not going to have the optimal digestive capacity to draw the nourishment out of it. It can be just as nourishing to, in a stress-free situation, eat something that you love. So this kind of takes us back to that idea of why it's much better to make your own soup with love, and to freeze it and to eat it, take it out of the freezer and eat it 10 days later, than it is to be worrying and stressing, whether about cost or about quality or about not meeting some sort of rules, and eating something out. So I'm going to really challenge you and invite you to consider for the next little while, what is your attitude around the packed lunches? So if there is some sort of anxiety or frustration, or if you're feeling resentful around the whole thing, then I think there's something that's an opportunity for you to figure something out. And somehow that is going to be negating nutrition. And often it is more the mental, emotional tension around eating that really contributes to food allergies, food intolerances, and food addictions that we see have become so prevalent in today's society. So to give you a really good example of this, I'm going to take us to our, we're going to talk about this idea of changing what you can and accepting what you cannot. And our real example of this is going to be considering the picky eater. Now, the picky eater can also be the challenged eater because of food intolerances or because of allergies. And whether this is you or somebody you're packing for, the picky eater kind of issue around packed lunches can really create some tension and anxiety in the family. So I'm going to share with you one of the things that we've worked with in our life to just completely remove all the stress from the situation. Just outside in the world, there is enough stress and strain that we have to deal with. The idea that just trying to create a lunch for ourselves or those that we care about is adding to that. I really just hope we can take those problems off the table right now. So this is what we do. We pack in the lunch just enough to get through the day. We don't really worry about the lunch so much. And specifically, I'm talking about if you're packing for a child, but even if you're also packing for yourself and you're just trying to eat something that you know you're going to kind of eat at your desk. This is what I would suggest trying. Don't worry so much about the lunch, but make sure that there's a really good breakfast and make sure there's a really good dinner. And then just try and put enough in the lunch to be somewhat satisfying. And those things that you know are kind of pleasing to whoever the lunch is being packed for, and that you know they're going to eat. So you can even see here in this picture just a nice assortment of some homemade cake and some cheese and crackers and vegetables and dip. Very easy to pack these all in little containers. And I know that if I put these things in my son's lunch, there's plenty there, and he'll pick and choose from it what he wants. And the other thing that we'll often then just put in his lunch, because he will not eat soup, right? This is what I'm talking about. The ideal situation is I'd love to be able to send him a beautiful warm thermos of soup, but he doesn't eat it. He can't be bothered. He thinks it's dorky, whatever the reason is at whatever age. So we just warm up hot chocolate and we put that in his thermos. So then I know he's getting protein. I know he's getting something warm and comforting and delightful. And then I know he's got all these fruits and vegetables that he can kind of graze on during his breaks in the day. But to me, none of this food is his real sense of nourishment for the day. As far as the real kind of nourishment is, we make sure that the breakfast is satisfying. And then as soon as possible when we come home, we just make sure that we sit down and have a really good family dinner together. And so it just completely negates the situation of having lunch be something that we worry about, being a stress that because we put effort into making something and then it comes back not eaten. All of those kinds of things kind of are removed from the situation when we just put little bits and pieces in there of what is healthy that we know he will eat. There's no battles anymore. And this is something I think is not just fair for children, but I think this is something that you can explore for yourself. As long as you're taking the time to ensure you have, 1 or 2 really good solid meals a day. A very interesting thing has really kind of happened, and I think a lot of it was created by perhaps the Kraft company or Swanson's TV dinners or all of these kind of commercial marketings, was this idea that we needed to have 3 very distinct, very full, very creative meals a day. And not only is that not true that we have to, it's very much not practical in a very busy life. And I just continue to see when I'm speaking with whoever the caregiver is in the house, it's usually the mother, the nurturer who's preparing the food, that it just creates stress. So for the picky eater, we just give them a bit of what we know they will eat, just enough to get them through the day. And then we fill in the gaps with warm, comfortable food the rest of the time. So what this kind of gives us is this foundation of what we call the well-nourished life. It takes us from a place of just trying to eat and get food in our body. And when that is done kind of obligatory or with responsibility or stress or strain, we're just not being nourished. And as we kind of see more and more these epidemics that we have in society of digestive and elimination complaints or challenges or diseases or allergies, we're seeing that there is a lack of nourishment happening kind of on all levels. So our hope is to kind of weave this Ayurvedic knowledge with really extraordinary support kind of on an individualized basis to really increase the ease and the organization and the creativity that people are experiencing in their lives. And a nice example that we can share of that is just from these principles around what we're talking about with lunch. Is last weekend I had to go to an all-day workshop, and I don't usually leave the house for the whole day. So all of a sudden I realized I had to bring a lunch. There wasn't really time to go out and have a lunch. There wasn't anything good around it, and so I could start to feel that stress kind of starting to creep up. And I was going with a few friends, and instead I just sent a few texts, and somebody had some soup, somebody had a thermos, somebody had some grapes and some celery sticks, and somebody had some hummus and some crackers. And we all just kind of pooled together. We packaged all of that stuff up, all of us who were going to the workshop. I also packed up some little placemats, little cloth placemats, and some little cloth napkins. And we all sat out at a picnic table. And we put our napkins out, and we put our table or our placemats out. And one of the other women brought some beautiful, actually, she brought beautiful pottery bowls that she had made. And, for the 45-minute break at this workshop, we were sitting on this one side of this picnic table, and we had this whole beautiful, nourishing picnic. It was delightful. And on the other side of the table, there were these ladies who had just kind of thrown together, some stuff and put it in a little plastic container. And you could see them kind of looking at us and being like, what is going on here? But they were so intrigued. And then I had an extra placemat. And when I gave one to the one lady, her whole face and her whole eyes lit up. And you could see it completely elevated the experience for her of lunch, which to me aids digestion, aids the ability to draw the power and the energy and the love out of food to energize us in our lives. And so that's really what we're inviting you to explore with us here in these kinds of considerations, beyond just packed lunches, but certainly also from that perspective as well. So what I want to do is just take a couple minutes and answer your questions. I've shared some very simple principles, and we only have a small amount of time tonight, so I wasn't going to be able to give too much. And the one thing that you may have noticed that I didn't do was really share any specific recipes. And partly because we don't have the time for it, but also partly because there's a million recipes on the internet. And so that's not information you necessarily need to come to us for. What I hope to be able to share with you is something beyond that. It's the simplicity and the ease of the principles behind the hows and whys you're doing things. And for you to really kind of self-explore and see if it's possible to just make things easier for yourself, to accept the things you cannot change, or to maybe have a little bit of courage to change the things you can. So that all being said, though, I am going to send you a link tomorrow. I'm going to send you some information with a few recipes that I think will go beautiful in a thermos. From one of our favorite places where we get recipe inspirations from the internet. I'm going to send that to you. So I promise you will get some recipes. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear what questions you have around what we've talked about. So if anybody has a question, you can just unmute yourself and you can ask. Or you can also type it in the comments. So we'll just give a sec here and see what anybody has to say. Okay. So we have a question here that's just been typed in. Let me read it. So when we're looking for that, we tend to pack the same thing all the time and it starts to get boring. So that I can certainly understand. And we definitely, when we're packing lunches for our son, we definitely notice that if we give him the same thing over and over again for 5, 6 days in a row, then he's not interested in it anymore. So whether you're packing for yourself or whether you're packing for somebody else, the magic of creativity lives within the human being. And we are not just meant to necessarily have the same thing over and over again. We love color and variety and texture. But I don't think it necessarily needs to be complicated. And for me, this is, again, one of the reasons why I love soups and stews. Because it just gives so much variation for texture, ingredients, and it's even something where you can make 2 different quick and easy soups. And I'm going to share a little bit of information on a course just at the end. I'm going to share a special offer with you and some information we have on making meals and recipes quick and easy, if you're looking for a little bit more support with that. But to me, there's just so much variety out there with different soups and stews. And so whether you go to the farmers markets, which I think are a beautiful source of local seasonal inspiration, and just pick one ingredient, and then bring it home, and whether you have something within your regular repertoire that you can make from that, or then you just take that one ingredient and you Google a soup or a stew or something around that, and then just play and practice when you have time. And generally soups and stews are also so very easy because you can throw them in a crock pot. They don't really take a lot of time to put together. The one other thing I'd say around creativity is the things that you add on the side of perhaps a soup or a stew in a thermos. You can have different types of crackers. You can have different types of breads. Actually, you can have just kind of any different type of a carb. So whether it's gluten-free or not, you can really just kind of mix that up every day. Sometimes you can just give muffins or cookies or bread or crackers or a sandwich. There are lots of different options there and things that you can put on it. And I think if you add one little special thing, whether it's a handwritten note or whether it's somebody's favorite little chocolate wrapped up, or a little fruit salad, just something unusual that doesn't have to take a lot of effort, but maybe just requires a little bit of thought. That one little thing can elevate a whole lunch that is consistent day from day. So those are a few thoughts I would share around just trying to keep things creative. So we have a few questions here as well, a few other questions. Let me see. Okay, so somebody is wondering what your famous thermos is and other containers. So that's a great question. I actually think brand thermoses are the best. And depending where you are in the world, actually the person who's asked this question is asking from Hawaii. So I'm trying to kind of keep things very general. But I think pretty much if you go to Amazon and you go thermos brand, that's what we use. And they have so many different sizes, whether you get the kind of tall and skinny ones to something kind of shorter and flatter. I sometimes think the tall and skinny thermos brand thermoses, they will hold soup boiling, piping hot for 4-6 hours. And then if you just pour it out in a bowl, wherever you are, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to eat it out of a thermos. If it's not practical to pour it out of the thermos, then you just get one of those other ones, which are more kind of bowl shaped. So, and as far as other containers, you know, to me, like if you're looking for other containers to kind of put some cookies or crackers or fruit in, to me, I would really try and marry or weave together practical and beautiful. I think that our lunch should be inspiring, and it should be something that we're enthusiastic to, whether it is in a little bag or it's in some sort of a cooler or something. When I open it up, I also want it to be somewhat pleasing. I don't think that has to be expensive, but I think it contributes to the experience. You know, I spent many years eating packed lunches, whether at school as a child or when I was working at the bank. And to me, the whole experience was dry. Whether the food was dry, it was leftovers that were dry, pasta that just gets dry when you have it at lunch, and then all these just kind of ugly leftover Tupperware containers. I just think try and find one little thing that, one little container that, you know, you love the color of the lid, or you put a sticker on it if it's for a child, if something that's important to them. And I don't know, I think try it. I think it changes the whole situation. And I don't believe there's any reason why any meal that we're eating, and whether it's just a packed lunch that we're trying to eat at our desk, still can't be delightful. So Jules, let me know if that answers your question, or if you want me to kind of expand on that. And we have one other question here in the meantime that I will take a look at. So the question from Kim: do you suggest having the family involved in the preparation of these lunches, either in the morning or on soup Sundays? Yeah, does that change things? That's a great question. I'm a big believer in recruiting help. One of the things that I have noticed with, I think a lot of busy women, is they don't always recruit help in the kitchen. And then it becomes a bit of a, sometimes it becomes a bit of a martyr situation, or it just becomes, then it just becomes uncomfortable because they're doing all the work themselves. So as from a young age as possible, I know that it sometimes can seem to be more work when you're tired and you're busy and you're just trying to get things put together. But if you can get someone else, and if you can get the family involved, it takes the pressure off you. And really what you're doing is you're cultivating a workforce. You know, for many years, we always had our child, and actually my husband didn't really know how to cook as well. And I've always encouraged them and asked for their help in the kitchen. And this week, my 13-year-old son, he baked a carrot cake on Monday, and he was so excited with that on Tuesday, he, with some help from his dad, made a vegetarian lasagna with homemade noodles, because I happened to have some dough in the freezer. And then we ate that lasagna for the next couple nights, and the whole experience for everybody was so delightful because everybody had been involved. And the one other secret about getting people involved in the cooking is they're more likely to eat it if they had a part in preparing it. So I just think it's a fun thing to do when we're trying to always find ways to kind of keep our son off a video game. We put some great music on. We let him pick a soup recipe that makes him happy. And then the family gets together and spends an hour or so on a Sunday morning making a huge pot of soup. And the pride, the excitement, and the skills that are learned really kind of uplifts everybody in the family. So that would be my suggestion. If you can make that happen, I think it's a really good investment in a long-term workforce that then at some point you can draw on in the future. And it just makes it fun. It turns it into family. So those are the questions we have. I'm also gonna send everybody an email with a recording of this video so you can watch it again, as well as a really nice summary I've put together of everything we talked about, so that if you don't want to watch the video again, you can get a summary of all of the points. And I'm also going to share with you an invitation to connect with me with any additional questions you have, just because we didn't have a lot of time for this class. So if we didn't get a chance to really personally address your question, then just feel free to contact me. Just respond to the email and shoot your question at me, and I'm really happy to give you that help. But you know, before we end, I just wanted to take a couple minutes and share a special offer with you. To us, this idea of the well-nourished life and nourishment is in some ways really the whole foundation of our family's life. And a few years ago, when I went out to our students, I wanted to create a new course. And I went out and polled, I actually surveyed and had discussions with many of our students that had been with us for a long time. And I asked them what they really wanted in a course. And I was looking to create some sort of a new meditation course. And they said, we really would love to know how it is you do what you do in the kitchen. And so we put together, we kind of consolidated everything that we do that makes our kitchen a delight, and the creativity and the state of nutrition and immunity that our family experiences. And we kind of consolidated this all together into one course. And so we're going to be offering that course. We usually only just offer it once a year. So it's going to be starting again soon. So your timing is really great here. We're going to be starting that again soon in October. And we really just want to offer to anyone who joined us tonight a special offer to save $50 if you want to join us in that course. I really believe in what that the experience of the well-nourished life has to offer. And I believe in it so much because I have been living it. I've seen how it works in our life. You know, our son is 13 years old. He's never been to a doctor for sickness. He's never been on antibiotics. Knock on wood, we just really don't get sick. We have this state of immunity that I think comes out of the kind of the joy and the nourishment of our kitchen. So not only do we experience it, but we've had probably almost 30 people over the last couple of years take this course. And we continue to get amazing feedback from all of them that it works. And so we have a promise, and this is what my promise to you is if you want to join us on the journey of the well-nourished life, is that if you sincerely engage in the course material, that you will increase organization, that you will increase ease, that you will notice an increase of nutrition and increased creativity, all coming out of your kitchen. And this isn't just about diet, but this is about nourishment. And that nourishment uplifts us. So even if this isn't just about recipes and teaching people how to cook. And for those who are already confident in their kitchen, what we continue to hear from those type of people who take the course is that it uplifted their whole experience of delight in the kitchen. And it saves people money. When you are happy in your kitchen, when you're organized, when you are supported, you don't need to eat out as much. If you want to eat out and that's a joy for you, that's a great thing. But when we're eating out because we're tired or we're insecure or we're bored, this is a really nice way that you'll see that money is saved. And we've heard that a lot, that people who took the course, even within the couple months that the course runs, saved enough money to pay for the course. So I would encourage you to take a look at it if any of it sounds somewhat appealing or resonates with you. And I promise I'm going to send all of that information to you, along with some recipes for soups and stews and a new recipe for a ratatouille that we recently saw online, which I think will look and go beautifully in a thermos. So that is what we have to share with you tonight. I really, really appreciate you all joining us. I hope that you find that we shared something that maybe challenges you or intrigues you, and that you try it in your life. And if you find that it works, please let us know. And if you find that it doesn't work, I really also invite you to please let us know. We've just committed our lives to trying to support people live a beautiful and uplifting life. And we really want to support in whatever ways we can do that. So keep a look on your inbox. You will find something from us in there probably tomorrow. And we hope you find something that you like, and we hope that we see you further on your journey. So thanks for joining us, and we wish you the deepest blessings on your kitchen.